Everyone, Lamed Aleph, Amar Beis, Amar Rav Yosef on the bottom. Hi, Chalad de Shechra, de Arma Aser, de Ma'arve Bey, Dur de Diayin Esech. This beer vinegar, Tapalam Beis Amid Aleph, of an Armenian is Aser, because they mix with it the sediment of Yayin Esech. So Rashi explains that wine sediment is cheaper than beer vinegar, and therefore they would add some of the wine sediment. They were worried that they added some wine sediment to the beer vinegar in order to increase the volume. Amar Rav Ashi, ume'otzar shari kevan dema'arve be misra sari. If you take beer vinegar out of an otzer that it was sitting in, then you're allowed to use it, because again it would spoil. The Metzias is that had wine sediments been mixed into beer vinegar, it would have spoiled in the storehouse. The fact that it's not spoiled shows that wine sediments have not been mixed into beer vinegar. And again, the problem here is not a problem of igluye. We're not worried about snakes drinking the beer vinegar. What we're worried about here is non-kosher wine being mixed in. So you have to be worried that non-kosher wine has been mixed in unless you take it from the otzar, in which case you know for sure, since it's not spoiled, that there's no non-kosher wine included in it. V'cheres hadrayani, hadrianic cheres, earthenware, jugs. So what's the story with those? My hadriani, what are these things, or who is this? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, cheres shel hadrianis Caesar. It's the earthenware of Hadrian the Caesar. So what's the problem with his jugs? There was karka besula that had never been worked before. Avda venata, he went and he planted it. That's his Hadrius. And he went ahead and they filled up the wine in these jugs. And what did they do? So they used brand new jugs, and it absorbed this wine that was fresh wine, very strong wine, because it was the first grapes of this land. Now they want to bring wine to battle, so you can't bring wine to battle, you can't bring wine bottles to battle. So what do? You basically put the wine into these brand new bottles, and then you break them, and you take the shards with you. And what do you want when you want wine on the battlefield? You put it and you soak it in water, and you have perfectly good wine. So they would break the jugs into shards. They would carry the shards to war, which you can carry. When they're at war, they'll soak the shards in water and they'll have wine. Our best wine was like the third time that they took their shards and dipped it into water. That means it was so strong that the third time that they did it, they were still having perfect wine.
So it was multiple use.
Multiple use.
Wow.
So you're not allowed to use this cheres again, because we assume that if they use this cheres, so that's the point, is that this cheres was a special type of earthenware. It was strong, and it really went ahead and took the wine into it. And therefore, if you would use it for your own drink, then the wine would come out, and you would be drinking yayin esech. Says a Gemara, in general, are you allowed to use, we're talking about this specific thing, but are you allowed to use, in general, we know you're not allowed to get hana from yayin esech. But let's say you don't want hana from the yayin esech itself. You just want something that, you want hana from something that the yayin esech is absorbed into. That means I can't take yayin esech and sell it because I'm getting actual hana from the actual wine. But let's say in this case where the wine is soaked into the jug, can I still use the jug? It means I can't drink from the jug seemingly because the wine is going to get into my wine and I'm going to be drinking yayin esech. But let's say I don't want to drink from that jug. Let's say, unfortunately, one of the legs of my bed broke and I need to keep my bed straight. I don't like sleeping on that angle where you have like that little thing, right? You don't like sleeping like when the table is not 100% and you got like that one leg that's shorter than the other ones. It's really annoying. So you put a piece of paper underneath it. Let's say you don't want a piece of paper underneath. You want to put a piece of shard underneath it. So you want to put a shard from the jug underneath it, but the shard has yayin esech in it. Is it okay to use something when you're not using the thing for the yayin esech purposes? It just happens to be parenthetically that the yayin esech is in the shard. If you just want the other thing, you don't really care about the yayin esech. If you would take the yayin esech out of the shard, nobody would care. I wouldn't care. I could still use it as a shard. Is it still going to be aser bana? Tashma. So the Gemara says the Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yochanan chad aser v'chad shari v'hilchsa kamanda aser. Either way you see the dalit is, you're not allowed to. Right. Once it's in there, it's aser. You can say, well, I'm using the non-yayin esech part.
There's no time when the lias is bottled in the shard.
So it might be. It might be, but again,
About,
After 3 times, maybe.
yeah, I mean, at a certain point, the time of this.
After you soak it 3 times, maybe.
again, that's a separate conversation. Now we're talking about getting hana from it.
I'm talking about the hana.
No.
The reason you can't get hana is because there's a belias into the shard, right? Not because the shard itself.
No, once it has yayin nesach, it could be asur for hana for olam. Once it's been poured, or once it has wine that was used for avodah
The
zara.
shard is going to be asur.
Forever.
Olam.
Yeah, for sure,
Because of
100%.
the house.
Correct. The question is, would you have time? Your question is more like, could there be a time if you're
drink some rest.
going ahead and drinking it? But again, if it's asur lana, it's asur lana. But we're going to say that it's not necessarily asur lana olam. If it's not asur olam, then you're asking, can you drink it? It seems like once it's in there, it's in there. Tashma, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yochanan, Chadasav, Chad Shari, Meisvei, Hadardurin, the jars, Harugbos, and the bottle shel ovdei kochavim, yayin she Yisrael kanus behen, asur b'shtia. Right, you can't drink it because we assume always, there's no time limit given. You assume that the yayin of yayin nesach went into the Jewish wine. B'shtia, mutter bana. So it's asur b'shtia, but it's mutter bana, which seems to be saying that what? Hey, it's Shimon ben Gudel l'fnei beno shel Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Gamliel sheshas menu ba'akav lahodelo. Rabbi Gamliel actually drank out of these barrels or out of these jugs, and they said you're not doing the right thing. So it seems like what we're saying is that you shouldn't be drinking out of them, but they're mutter bana. We're going to have to see why exactly are they mutter bana. They should be asur bana. No doshel ovdei kochavim. The flasks of ovdei kochavim. Rashbagam Rabbi Shimon Rishon ben Kupsai. Asur lasos man shtichin lechamor. You can't make saddles for a chamor. That seems to imply what? You can't make the saddles because they're asur bana. So first of all, the Reish and the Sefer contradict each other. But the Meisvei here was on the Chad that's Shari. How can you go ahead and say that maybe you can go ahead and use it for your table when you clearly see you can't use flasks that were originally used for yayin nesach, you can't use them as a saddle for your chamor. So you're not using it. If you said to me that the yayin nesach was not in this flask, of course I would use it. I'm not using it for the yayin nesach. I don't care. If anything, I don't want the yayin nesach. I don't want to be sitting on yayin nesach and smell like wine every single time I get off of my chamor. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. So you see over here that you're allowed to use that you're not allowed to use it for a saddle, and you see over there that seemingly you're telling me, again, the Meisvei on the Mandamar says you're allowed to use it for your table. Says the Gemara, according to you, according to you, that you're not allowed to use it, then the kankanim shel ovdei kochavim should be asur to use it all. I don't understand. Why are you telling me that if you're not using it for drinking, you're allowed to get hana from it? That means you're asking a question on me who says, right, again, the question is on the person who says you're allowed to get hana from it. You're allowed to get hana, you're allowed to use it as for your bed. So we said to him, well, you clearly see that you can't use it as a saddle. And he says back to you, like a good Jew, he asks another question, right? He doesn't answer, he gives a question. You're telling me that you see it's asur to use as a saddle, then why are you telling me over here that it's mutter bana? If you're telling me that it's asur, so then it should be asur across the board. Says the Gemara, Maishna nodos and Maishna kankanim. What's the difference between nodos and kankanim? Amarav gzera shema yibaka nodo, v'yidlenu v'yitferenu al gabe nodo. So this seems to be saying that what? According, we're now within the Mandamar who says that you're allowed to go ahead and use these items. So you're allowed to use items. It means if you have an item that had wine of an ovdei kochavim in it, you're not allowed to drink from it, but you're allowed to use it. So that means you're allowed to use it for your table. Then why can't you use it as a saddle? You can't use it as a saddle for another reason. Not because when you're using something and you don't care about the wine, you're not allowed to use it, you're allowed to use it. So I can use it as a saddle, a separate gezerah. What are we nervous about? You're going to be carrying a flask of wine with you. What's going to happen to the flask, which is made out of leather? It's going to rip while you're on the trip. What are you going to do? You're going to start scrambling. You don't want to lose your wine. What are you going to do? You're going to rip the saddle off of the chamor, which has non-Jewish wine on it, and you're going to use it to patch up your flask, which has kosher wine, and then you're going to drink your kosher wine, which is now mixed with non-kosher wine. So in general, according to the Gemara, we're saying now within this Mandamar, in general, we're going to hold, this Mandamar is going to say, flasks of non-Jews you can't drink from because they had wine in them, and they're going to bring blias, and they're going to go into your wine. You want to use hana from them when you can say that the hana that you're getting is not from the yayin nesach per se, and you couldn't care less if there was yayin nesach in there. You're allowed to get hana from it. You can use it for the shard. You can use it for your table. Why can't I use it then as a saddle? Why can't I use this leather flask that they used to use for yayin nesach as a saddle? That's a separate gezerah that you may take that saddle / old flask and you may use it to patch up your thing. But in a chanami, according to this Mandamar, asur b'shtia, but mutter b'ana. If if you say that in a chanami that you're not allowed to use anything with the ayin nesach, and therefore the saddle case you don't have to explain to me because that's the given case. So why by the kankanim case, why am I allowed to go ahead seemingly and use them for the table? Ma'ishna kankanim desharu. Says the Gemara, that wouldn't be by the Hadrianic ones. He would say that the amount of yayin nesach absorbed, that's going to be the difference. That means the amount of yayin nesach that absorbed is negligible, then in that case we're going to let you use it. So when it's negligible, like a kankan, you can use it for non-eating purposes. But when it's absorbed in a cheresh shel hudranius, which is real and a lot, then you can use it. So again, we have two different mandiyamers that it comes out. One mandiyamar says that in general, yayin nesach, which is absorbed into something, you can't drink out of that thing, but you can use it no matter what it is. You can use it for other purposes because you don't care about the yayin nesach that's absorbed into it. The other mandiyamar says that yayin nesach that's absorbed into something, it depends. It's going to be aser. But it's only going to be aser if there's a tangible amount of yayin nesach in there, like the cheresh shel hadrinus. If it's absorbed in and it's negligible, then they'll agree with the other mandiyamar that you can actually use it. So again, it seems like most of the time, quote unquote, or many times you'll be able to use it for hana. Again, doesn't mean you can get hana by selling yayin nesach. You'll be able to use an item which you don't care about the yayin nesach shabo, assuming that it's negligible. You'll be able to use it for other purposes. But again, if it's a lot of yayin nesach, then that mandiyamar would say that it's aser to use for anything. Yeah.
Hana is not across the board?
The what is?
You just said hana, like selling is different than putting
I just said it's not across the board. I said
hana is not across the board.
No, again,
Fixing,
selling the
holding up your table is in selling to you are two different types.
So selling the actual yayin nesach, everybody says is aser. That's not a given. That's a given.
Even though
selling
hana.
it. That is hana.
Selling. I mean like hana 1 and hana 2.
So hana 1 is selling the actual yayin nesach.
Always aser.
Hana 2 is
holding
getting hana from something
whatever.
like indirectly when you don't care that the yayin nesach there. In the first case, you need the yayin nesach. That's what you're selling. In the second case, you just want the shard.
Okay.
So you don't necessarily want the yayin nesach. It's like by brachos. It's like what's the ikar, what's the tafel. If the yayin nesach is the ikar, it's aser. If it's the tafel, then there's a machlokes.
So that's how I make a distinction between hana 1 and hana 2.
Hana 1 and hana 2.
Hana 1 is the ikar.
Right. Again, according to one mandiyamar, hana 2 would also be aser.
Right.
According to the other mandiyamar, hana 2 would be mutter, except in a case where it's
saddle.
Really no, the saddle would be mutter in that case. Except according to that mandiyamar, it would be mutter. Except in the case where there's a lot of wine in it, then it would be aser, like the case of the Hadrianic.
So if you might come to
things.
drink it as well. That's the issue.
Well, if you might come to drink it, right?
So is the emphasis on the Hadrianic vessels themselves in terms of how they absorb, or is it the fact that the wine is so strong that it's going it's the vessels.
Right. I think that the story about it being strong was just showing why they used it to bring it to war. But I think it's a din that's. I think it's at the way that they're the way that they're made. Yeah. Okay. Sakta Gemara, v'lo hodelo. They didn't agree to Rabbi Gamliel when he drank out of it. Seemingly, everybody would say you can't drink out of them. Or minhi yaina ba birukva shelo dechavim aser b'shtio muter bahana. Hey, it's your meguda flei beno Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel shashas menu ba'ako v'hodelo. We have another brisa that says it was okay. It says, "Gemara, Milo hodelo to Gemara, some kol siyaso aval beno modino." No, the one who was moded him, his son. Of course, the son's going to say what you were doing was fine. But in general, nobody else listened. Halavai, our son should listen to us. Usually it's the opposite. Kol siyato, listen to us. Our sons don't listen to us. Okay. Or it's two different, you see that they spell Shimon ben Guda two different ways. It was two different Shimon ben Gudas. But again, Pashup Shad is that you would not be able to drink out of it. The Oros Levuvin. If you remember yesterday, we spoke about, or 2 days ago, we spoke about the skins. And we said that if the skin has a pierced hole right by the heart, you're not allowed to use it because we assume that they killed it for Avodah Zara. So talking about an Ezehu or Lavav, what is this case? Called Shekarua Keneged Alev, V'Kader Kamina Aruba. It needs to be that there's a tear near the lave, and it's a pierced hole that's round. Yeshalav Kored Dam Aser. Again, you're finding the skin and you're buying it in the store. So you go into the store, I don't know why you'd buy it, but you go into the store and you buy a piece of skin, and you see a hole right by the heart. So if there's a Yeshalav Koradam Aser, if there's crust around the hole, then what do you know? They killed it while it was alive, and it bled, and that's why Lamai said there's blood around the hole, and it has to be a hole, and it's a hole, and there's blood around it. You assume that they killed it for Avodah Zara. Ein alav koradam mutter, but if there's no blood around it, then it's mutter, because then what do you assume? Then you assume that they killed it first, then they skinned it, and then for whatever reason they made a hole by the heart to where the heart had been, but there would be crust. there would be crust had they killed it alive. And it's only going to be usher because they only go ahead and kill it for avodah zarah when it's alive. So if it was alive, when they killed it, you would see the hole, but you'd also see crust around the hole. The Gemara says, Amar Afuna, one exception, Lo shano ela shelo malchu. Ava malchu aser ema malchu haveraso. However, the exception would be that if they actually took the leather and they did something with it, they tanned it, they salted it, then it would make the blood disappear. And then if you don't see blood, if you see tan leather in the store, which is usually what you see, and you see the hole by the heart, and you don't see, again, assuming you'd be able to figure out where the heart is on that thing, and you don't see any blood, you still can't buy it. Because once it's tanned and it's salted, then you can assume that maybe then you have to be choshesh that maybe there was blood. But if you go into the store and you know what you're looking for, and you find a piece of leather, and you see a hole by the heart, and it's not tanned, and it's natural, whatever that means, and there's no crust around the heart, then you can buy it because you can assume. But if there is crust around the heart, you have to assume that they killed it for avodah zarah. No, so again, we're assuming today that it wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but enachanami.
B, you gotta see the hole around the heart.
Right, you don't assume by definition that it's a problem. You only assume if there's a hole around the heart. If you see the hole around the heart, then you have to assume that maybe they got rid of the blood. But you don't assume by definition that they killed every single animal for avodah zarah. Again, it has to be a round thing, because even if they killed it while it was alive, if they slid it down this way and they didn't kill it with the round hole, then it wasn't for avodah zarah. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, halacha k'resh bag. Halacha is like resh bag. Amar Abaye, what's up, man? Halacha mechlal depligi. What do you mean halacha is like him? We have one opinion, and then you say, oh, halacha is like him. Of course halacha is like him. We only have one opinion. Says the Gemara, Amalei, my nafka l'chamina. Stop picking on me. Who cares? Why do you give me such a hard time that I said halacha k'resh bag? I want to say halacha k'resh bag. What are you telling me that, oh, what do you have to tell me halacha is like who? We only have one opinion. Amalei, Gemara, Gomers, Mirasate. Don't tell me it's not a big deal. If you're bringing it, we know the Gemara is very succinct, just like the Torah is succinct. Don't tell me that halacha is like resh bag when he's the only opinion. So that was a machlokes here. He said, why are you telling me halacha is like resh bag? He said, what do you bother me? Who cares? He says, I care because it should be succinct. And shalom al Yisrael. Says the Gemara, basar nichnas lavodas kochav v'mutter. We said that if you have basar, we're not talking about alive. We're not talking about an alive animal. A dead animal, and the guy is walking towards his temple, you're allowed to buy it. Now, obviously, not buying it to eat because you have to assume that he didn't shechter right. But you want to do business. You're allowed to do business with non-kosher basar, assuming that it's not for avodah zarah and it's not basar b'chalav. So you want to buy a piece of meat when he's on his way to his temple. Mantana, where do we see that that's mutter? Amar of Chia Barabba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, de lo Rabbi. It's not like Rabbi Elazar. De ik Rabbi Elazar, Amar stam machsheres ovekucham lavodas kachabim. Fascinating. Rabbi Elazar says he couldn't buy meat on the way to his temple. Why? Because the stam machshava of an ovei kochavim, when he shechs the animal, is for avodah zarah. You're assuming that when you could buy the meat, that's because when he shechted it, he didn't have intent for the avodah zarah. But if at the time that he had intent, like Rabbi Elazar says, stam machshava, when an ovei kochavim goes ahead and shechs an animal, his stam machshava, his default machshava, without thinking about it, the default that he does is for avodah zarah, then you have to assume that this piece of meat, when it was shechted, was for avodah zarah, and you can't buy the meat. You can only buy the meat if you assume that when they shech their animals, again, they're not shechting it the way that we shech it, when they shech their animals, when they kill their animals, it's not for avodah zarah. Therefore, this meat does not become avodah zarah meat until they actually walk into the temple, and that's why you can't buy it on the way out. You can only buy it on the way in, as we'll see in 1 second. But on the way in, you can buy it, assuming that you don't hold like that opinion.
If you had a machshava for avodah zarah after the shechita, it would still be asur, right?
Seemingly it would still be asur, but we don't assume that. He's assuming that stam machshava by
at any time. When
stam machshava, right? But he's saying that stam machshava when you shecht it, it's for avodah zarah. We don't assume that they shecht that if you hold that stam machshava by shechting is not for avodah zarah, we don't assume that every single ovei kochavim at some point has stam machshava for basar. We assume that they're shechting it to eat it, unless you hold like this opinion that stam thing is not to eat and stam is for avodah zarah. Then you can never buy meat from them.
If you're going in for his vote, if you bring meat into the temple for avodah zarah, why is he going to stop and sell it to you?
Because he hasn't. You give him a good price.
He's on his way in.
You give him a good price. He hasn't. Now it's interesting because you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point. Why is it the fact that he's intended to bring it in sounds like it's not yet set aside for avodah zarah? That's interesting. Could be for lunch. It could be anything. It could be for lunch. He's bringing his deli sandwich, and you say, "Man, that looks like a good deli sandwich," even though I can't eat it.
I want to
give you $100.
I want to give it to my dog.
Give you $100 for that.
On that basis, you're stopping him from doing avodah zarah by buying it. So it's another good thing.
Right, but if he set it aside already for avodah zarah, you can't necessarily do that. Right. Hayot asim neishu kiziv chemesim. But on his way out, and he's still holding that piece of meat, then you know there's a problem. Because again, it's like lahavdil. If you see a guy coming into shul with food for the kiddush club, he ain't walking out with food for the kiddush club. And if he is, then He's probably stealing food.
He didn't use it for avodah zarah. He's walking it out already.
No, the point is that he gives it to avodah zarah and then he brings it home and eats it. Just like we shech the korban in the base of Mikdash, and then we take home the meat and we eat
I
it.
thought they leave it there.
So I'm not so familiar, but it sounds like they're not necessarily leaving all of the meat there. There might be times that they meet it. There might be an
Usually you see those
ola.
idols, and the guy sits there and it's like they put stuff in front of him.
Right, but it doesn't tell me that he burns it. It might be an ola, and then there might be other types of things that
They bring home.
Yeah.
So is this like the Machshavas of a goy?
One for you, one for me.
Is this the sugya?
You see the stuff in the.
I don't know for sure, but it sounds like if he has machshava, it's like if he shechs it l'shem the avodah zara, just at the time of the slaughter. My timer. What's the reason you can't buy it on the way out? Because if he brought it into the temple, it's impossible that he did not offer it up to the avodas kochavim. It sounds like there are going to be cases where you offer it up and then you bring it home to eat. Mani Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseiri, Ditani Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseiri Omer, Minayin letigros avodas kochavim shemetame ba'oel. How do you know that something that was used for avodas zara is metame ba'oel? Shenemar v'yitz medula ba'alpor v'yochlu zivchei meis imam meis metame ba'oel, because it compares tikrovas avodas zara to a person who dies, just like a person who dies is metame ba'oel afti tikrovas avodas kochavim metamis ba'oel. Just like a person who dies, if you go in the same house as them, you become tamei. So too, if something was used for avodah zara, if you go into the same house of it, you become tamei. And Rashi points out, just like a person who dies, you're not allowed to get hana from them. So too, you're not allowed to get hana from a tikrovas avodah zara, which is what we're learning here. Therefore, if he comes out of the temple with his meat, you ain't allowed to buy it.
If the goy shed corpse, do you have
I don't believe so. No. I don't believe so. You have to double check. If you go to the pilgrimage, if he's going to the pilgrimage, you can't do business with them. This goes back to the first half of avodah zara. Amar Shmuel, ovei kochavim aholech letarfus ba'alicha asur da'azu l'modi kamei avodas kochavim. If you do business with him on the way to the pilgrimage and he gets a good deal from you, he's going to go thank his avodah zara. Bechazara mutter my da'avav. On his way home, you could do business with him. You see him in the airport on the way back from Mecca. You could do business with him because he ain't turning around and missing his flight to go say thank you to the God for the money you just gave him. However, listen to this. This is fascinating. Yisrael aholech l'tarfus nebach Yisrael that's going to Mecca to serve avodah zara. Behalicha mutter. On the way, you could do business with him. We assume that Stam, he's not going to end up going. He's gonna go ahead and he's gonna turn around and he's gonna change his mind. He's gonna do tshuva. Bechazara, once he went, also you can't do business with him. Kevan da'avik ba mahadar hadarazo. He becomes worse than an ovei kochavim. The ovei kochavim on his way home, we assume he ain't turning back. He was just there. He spoke to avodah zara. He ain't turning back and going to give thanks after you do business with him. The Jew who goes to serve avodah zara, on the way there, we can assume he's going to turn around. Therefore, you can do business with him on the way there. But once he goes, he's worse than the ovei kochavim in the sense that if you meet him on the way back in the airport and you do business with him, he's going to be so connected to avodah zara, he's going to turn around, miss his flight. He's going to run back to the temple to thank the avodah zara.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, but you see that sometimes. You see that the lahachasniks, or the ones that go off, are much worse than the ovdei kochavim in the first place. Whatever it is, because they have to go out and either have to prove a point, or they get so tied in that they become worse than the worst enemies. They become more involved in avodah zara than the original avodah zara itself. Let me just finish and then we'll talk. V'atanya Yisrael aholech letarfus bein ba'alicha bein bechazara aser. But you see over here that a Yisrael, you can't do business with him whether he's going or coming. But it seems like you can't do business with him even when he's on his way. No, that's the Yisrael Mummer who's already off the path, who's already lahachasnik. He on the way, he ain't turning around. We're talking about a Stam Jew who's never done it before, his first time. We assume he's going to do tshuva. This guy who's already done it before, you can't do business with him going or coming because now he's really lahachasnik. You can't do going because he's not going to turn around, and you can't do when he's coming back because he's worse than a regular ovdei kochavim. And if you do business with him now, he's going to turn around and he's going to go thank the ovdei kochavim. Yeah, what was the question?